And welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Ness.
And I am Jay.
We do record on a Sunday, and today happens to be Easter. Who celebrates? Today's date is also fun because it's 420. So happy 420 to anyone who celebrates. This comes out after.
If you do both, must be a great party.
Right. No, for real. I joke with my friends and my girlfriend, like, is he risen or is he just high? You know?
He's rising.
he's getting up there. A lot of stuff. Oh, did you have something to say?
I was just going to continue that, just on that wavelength about if they're doing like Easter egg hunts and it's like an older party that like smokes, like they get to like hide stuff in the eggs.
You're onto something.
Got
I'm gonna have my own Easter egg hunt with all my grown-up friends.
Great ideas. And I do neither of these things. So.
You're right, me neither. But it's like, hey, it's fun. Okay, so I guess a lot has happened this week regarding the Sharks. They played their last game on Wednesday. It was not a great one. I'm not sure if you want to go ahead and do like a little review again of the weeks. It was 3 games.
3 games, pretty sure.
Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
So last week there was a game on Sunday, and we recorded before it.
Oh yeah.
I didn't catch a whole lot of it because I went to the Bay game, and like Nate was texting me some stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. Like he was texting, reacting to it. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. You have to tell me. I'm at a game right now, so he was kind of keeping me posted. I did get to watch a little bit of the third. Like we said last week, I'm not bothered. I would have loved for them to at least gotten one more win, like especially the last game of the season being a home game. I believe it was sold out. Like it would have been great all around. There was something else significant about Wednesday's game that I can't remember anymore, but like it would have just been great all around, but it is the Oilers. They are in the playoffs, they're going to have they're not going to throw away this game. They're trying to get into that mode. So it was understandable that they were kind of coming out and making it hell for us and whatever. And like, of course, Stuart Skinner has to come out with his best game of the year. Like, where have you been, my guy? But anyways, but out of all those games, I was most frustrated with the Canucks game.
Why?
Georgiev was playing so well. And I mean, probably we're going to touch about this a little later, but he comes in here. We make this trade with the Avs. I mean, Blackwood, yesterday's game, I watched some of the Avs Stars game. Like Blackwood was like some of the stuff that he was doing. Like, sure, it sucks that he can't be doing that for our team, right? But you can see why Grier made the trade, get some value from him, because at the end of the day, we don't want Askarov to be put in yet another situation where he's like, oh, great, like, here we go again, like the whole reason why the trade was made with the Predators, like he wants a fair shot. And if you're signing someone like a Blackwood, who's, he's been really great for us ever since he came over from the Devils, it's like, it just, I would have, if he would have kept him around, I would have been critical of Grier. Like, come on, like you'd make this trade for Askarov, and then you're like, oh, Blackwood's doing real great things, So it almost feels like it's hard. You want your GMs to be honest, even in the reality that this is a business and they have to make these hard decisions. But all that to say, when we brought Georgiev over, of course, it's frustrating because we're like, oh, we had such real, one of the problems we had in the last couple of seasons is, or longer than that, is goaltending. And now you get the solid guy in net, but our timelines don't match up. You don't want to have this like almost near lights out goaltender goaltending the 32nd team in the league, right? It just doesn't add up. But Georgiev hasn't been great, nearly as much as we've kind of seen when we brought Blackwood over. But that game with the Canucks, you could really start, this guy's a professional goaltender. He wants to continue his career at the highest level of this sport. And even in the games where he's let up goals, he's not going to just go home and be like, well, I guess my career's over and just going to roll over and take it, right? He's going to come back in. We know that our goaltending staff is, we've brought in these project goaltenders in the past, and they've made some improvements, and some of them better than others, but we know that he's probably coming in day out, and he's like, I want to improve not only for myself, but to help this team win. And in that game, I was invested in. He is playing so well, and we are so close in this game. I really, really want this win for him, and then, of course, for the team. But I wanted it more for him in that moment with the Canucks because he was playing so well, and the goal that got given up is so frustrating because it was the weirdest bounce. It was a shot on net, and then the rebound was just the weirdest bounce ever. And so, of course, tied it up, and then you go over overtime, and the game-winning goal for the Canucks. They kind of dominated us all OT. The guys were really not helping Georgiev for that OT minutes, and he was trying his best to do everything he can, but the goaltender can't do everything. He needs support from his team, and I believe it was a shot that went off the backboards, came back up near the crease, and I don't remember who was near the crease, who was defending, who ended up scoring. But when that goal got scored, I had an involuntary physical reaction. I was like, no! I was so mad in that moment, and I really haven't felt that way all season, when we've had a dominating lead and then we've given stuff up, I've just kind of laughed about it and been like, oh, well, but we had some great moments with Celebrini and Smith. I'm always seeing the optimistic side of it, being excited for the individual aspect and then the growth as a whole for the team. But with Georgiev, I've said this, I don't remember if I've said it officially on the podcast because I've been kind of let's continue wait and see. But I've said it in passing with friends that I'd be okay if we give Georgiev a short contract.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't, I will understand it because we're 32nd in the league. We can't be 32nd next season. We need to take more of a jump. And that means being harder on decisions and not giving so much leadway. And that's why I felt so invested in Georgiev in that Canucks game, because I'm like, he is really trying to show, let me stay here. I'm improving. I can help out this team next season. And so that's really the gist of what I remember from the past couple of games. That one was the one that really captivated me. I was really into that game. And the Oilers game, it was just frustrating that they were really dominating. And I just was wanting the team to at least get one more win here before the end of the season.
Yeah, I think I was disappointed that they weren't even able to score one game during the Oilers game on Wednesday because You're gonna go out in the season with a shutout? That sucks. It sucks for the fans. But I wasn't able to catch these games. It's been another one of those weeks. I did have some time to look through a bunch of like videos about from the locker room clean out and the Couture retirement, which I wanted to bring up as well. Our captain has decided to call it quits. Well, I guess he didn't really decide himself, but he has officially announced his retirement from the league, unfortunately, which is so weird because we were just talking about this last week. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's looking like he's not going to be able to come back because we haven't heard any updates or anything. Sure enough, like the very next day, they were like, Couture, Mike Grier announces that they're going to do a press conference with Couture. And at that point, everyone knew because it's like, you're not getting any updates. And all of a sudden there's a press conference. It's like, he's going to announce his retirement. And sure enough, Tuesday comes, they do the press conference. And it's like, within the first couple of minutes of talking, he's like, I'm announcing my retirement from the NHL. His injury was never getting any better. He really worked hard at it. I think the first few months of the season starting, he said he would try, but he could only go a couple of days with training before he got really sore and couldn't do much. And it was just getting worse and worse as time went on. So one of the questions that was asked during the press conference was when did he know that it was over or like he wasn't going to be able to come back? And he said somewhere around December, he kind of had an idea that his injury is not going to be getting better with the intense training that he was doing. But he did also mention during his speech that the last game that he played against Anaheim last January, I believe it was the 31st, if I remember correctly, he said that he was really hurting that game. He was really sore. And before he left the ice, he took one look around just in case. And I was like, that's so heartbreaking because he kind of knew already. And yeah, I don't know, man. It was like the speech itself that he made, he was pretty well spoken and like he wasn't breaking too often, but there were moments where you could tell that his voice was cracking. He was trying not to cry. And I was like, oh, and I feel like this is the most emotion I've seen out of him since like following this team. So it was really interesting. But yeah, it was good to see. Like they showed him on the jumbotron at the game on Wednesday. Everyone gave him like did they give him a standing ovation or just like applauded for him?
I'm sure there were people standing. Like I do remember during the game, I felt really proud of our fan base. I mean, we know there's people who are critical of this prior to this information coming out, and they're not necessarily the loudest folks, but it is kind of when you see it in passing, you get this feeling that, oh no, there's a lot of people who feel this way. But I want to say majority of the fan base are empathetic towards what he was going through and how everybody kind of handles things in a different way. We've talked last week about how, Landeskog's time away from the team, him being the captain, the Avs seem to, maybe not a lot, but you definitely felt like he was still around the team because maybe they took photos of him. Maybe he's more vocal about it, whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that it should be, that you need to be, oh, look, we see him in the locker room and every
Right.
month you've got a little photo op. And, even players like Carey Price is still on LTIR with the Habs, and he has like a one time of year press conference like Couture to give updates, and then you don't see him for the rest of the year. And at this point, we're kind of expecting that he's just going to ride out. I don't remember if he had said anything official, but So it happens in different ways, and ultimately I that that press conference with Couture, you could tell that he tried everything that he could. If he could get better yesterday or day one of the season, this guy we've talked about, I mean, he even said in his press conference, like they were joking about how he from a very young age, he was obsessed with this sport. And I believe he told a story about how, like, a dance he was going to go to, and he was concerned with, like, but how do I bring my hockey stick with me? Like, he just, you eat, live, breathe, the the stereotypical Canadian is just so much in love with this sport. And so I just kind of felt like the certain vibes around the fan base about, well, we just need to strip him of his C, and all this stuff I just felt was like pretty insensitive for a guy that, when Pavelski was traded off in his last season, I felt like it was a no-brainer that Couture was going to be captain next. This guy was drafted by this team. I was trying to think way back to before he was on the team. Like, I wasn't following our prospects and the AHL nearly as closely as I do these days, but I remember there were little moments where you would highlight, like, the good things that Couture's doing during his development with the Ottawa 67s. And then when he was with the Worcesters, like, he was doing great things over there, and came over officially with the Sharks in 09 and 10, and got to be around all these greats that we love to talk about so much, that are just praised all over by the fan base and the organization. Pretty much he spent his entire career with the Sharks. And, unfortunately, he does get the captaincy around the time when we're not making the playoffs, which is, I mean, I won't say that that's harder than during the playoffs when you're not making the Stanley Cup. Like, I can recall when Joe Thornton was stripped of the captaincy, and, like, that drama that happened in the fan base and things like that. But he definitely his captaincy style may not resonate with people, much like maybe like a Joe Thornton, who's very vocal, who's very, just a big personality, versus Couture is more reserved. He's kind of like a Patrick Marleau in a way, where they're doing stuff. It's just, we're not necessarily seeing it like the way that we think it should happen, but it doesn't make him any less of a good captain. And just to see his career end in this way, it's like really difficult for him. This is his entire life, and he doesn't get to make this decision like some other folks, along the way. And decision was kind of made for him. And you said, like, it was around January where Couture said that he kind of saw the writing on the wall. And so from then till this press conference, he's kind of mourning, the reality of his dream. Just, he's had so many amazing moments, of course, but he has this dream of, I want to take, as the captain, I want to take this team back to the playoffs. I want to win it all. And he doesn't get to do that.
Yeah.
And, so I think from January until then, it's kind of like he's staying out of the press light, and probably trying not to go in during the times when the rest of the team is going in there, because like, if it's like for the public practice, for the practices, it's open to the public, and then the public waits in the parking lot for the players. Like, he probably doesn't want to have to deal with like hundreds of fans or whatever
asking him.
asking him and him having to put on this brave face and maybe not say anything because he wants to wait until he has this sort of support from the team. And then also during the season, we're being very critical about the direction of the team, the up and coming guys and whatever. I think it was very appropriate that they waited until towards the end of the season to kind of like not distract or like make it, like focus the attention on him and whatever. And then in general, just to give him time, wait for him to feel ready to say what he needs to say. I really love those memories that he brought up. And then in particular, the one against Vegas. I think
Hearing
that
his perspective was so cool.
yeah. And just, if you haven't been following the team from the early years of when he was a fresh rookie on the ice to his journey throughout this representing in this organization, that series when Pavelski went down and they went on that 5-minute
dude, when Pavelski went down, you could hear a pin drop in the arena. Like everyone was so concerned because there was so much blood and he was not getting up, and we're like, what's happening? By like the end of the game, that it was crazy loud. Kind of like that. My bad. My bad. How loud that arena got is like the contrast, insane.
And for Couture to go out there and score that goal, and him talking about how he was like, and that's one, like, yeah, that guy locked in, and he was like, we are coming back in this game for our captain. And that, in a nutshell, is Couture. He's the player that he gets the nickname Captain Clutch, because you can depend on this guy to show up in games.
Yeah, when it matters.
Yeah. And yeah, the latter half of his career is kind of overshadowed by the fact that we have been down here in the bottom. We haven't made the playoffs, and it's a very frustrating time as a leader of the team. But I mean, I don't really have like a certain direction I'm coming to a closure here. It's just that press conference in itself, like I just felt like when we finally got to hear and see what everyone's been kind of like, well, where's the news? Where's Couture? Whatever, like this was probably the plan all along. When you're ready, we'll come together and, we'll give you the best send off, however you need us to support you. That's what we're going to do. Which I think is a better, it's the direction I feel that you want your team to go in, versus shoving you into a situation for the organization's sake versus thinking of the person in this situation.
Yeah. I think I think I was a little surprised in a sense about Mike Grier's speech after Couture talked, because for those of you on Twitter, if you were following along with the little bit of drama that was happening like a week ago or so, someone had noticed that Couture stopped following the Sharks, and people were blowing it out of proportion, saying what happened between him and the organization, what's going on. And people were thinking that there was like a falling out of some sort. I don't know. Anyways, it got resolved. He started following the Sharks again, and people kind of dropped it after that. So in my mind, I'm like, did something happen between him and the organization? So the press conference happens. I watched the video because I wasn't able to catch it live. I was at work. And Couture says his speech. He finishes up, and then Grier speaks, which I also want to point out, I thought it was really funny that, Couture had like 10 papers of his speech. Like he's flipping through as he's going, right? And then it's like, okay, now Mike Grier's gonna speak, and then he doesn't have any papers. He's just speaking from the heart, and he's like, you could tell Couture was nervous because he was fidgeting the whole time, right? And he's like probably trying to hold his emotions together, which makes sense. And then Grier's sitting there when he's talking, and he's like so calm. There's the again, like it feels like Couture's like vibrating in his seat because of the nervousness or whatever, and then Grier's just like, no, I'm really gonna miss you. Yeah. I think okay, but like I did pull up an article here written, I want to say by Shang. It's always Shang. Uh, and he quotes Grier saying, the player I most was excited to work with was you when he first took the job as GM. And I thought that was really interesting. He said the 200-foot game, the quiet intensity, the competitiveness, and of course the clutch performances. When I was probably 10 or 11, my dad told me the best players play the best in the biggest games. And that was you, you know, like, I'm not sure what exactly about that caught me by surprise, but it was like, oh, you do still like him. There's nothing wrong with him in the organization. And, you know, Grier did give him the opportunity to go, like, figure out what he needed to. Couture talked about having to go see a bunch of different specialists around the country. And, you know, that's probably, like, where most of his time was and why he wasn't in the locker room with the team is because he's trying to figure his stuff out, which is fair. But yeah, like this guy has gone through a lot. It's nice that he finally gets this closure and gets to figure out what he's going to do in his life next. But you know, again, in that press conference, Grier basically offered him a job in the organization when he's ready to take it. And it's like, of course he is. Of course he's going to offer him something. He said, you have a really great hockey mind, high IQ, and we would love to keep that within the organization. And I'm curious to know what kind of job he would take because during the game on Wednesday, I did pop in for a little bit because it was the last game of the season. And so Randy had him on. So instead of like calling the game, Randy's interviewing him. And it was really funny because Randy had asked Couture, like, what were your favorite moments or your favorite games that you played? One of them he mentioned the game. I think he scored an empty netter to send them in, like to basically clinch going into the Stanley Cup final or something. And he talked about seeing the fans' faces and how in disbelief they were because it's actually happening and the moment, like what he felt in that moment. And then he was like, the second one, I know you're gonna guess it's the game 7 against Vegas. And so again, he tells like his side of the story of how what led up to those 4 goals in 4 minutes, and like what he was feeling and what the team was experiencing and all that. Which again, if you guys haven't heard it, it's like it's really interesting to hear from his perspective because you know he was there and he basically led the charge. And before he got into it, they were interrupted because the Oilers had scored. And so he's about to start, and Randy's like, oh, they scored a goal. And so obviously they have to switch back to the game and talk about the goal. And so Randy says a little bit, he's like, oh, since we have you here, Couture, why don't you talk about this play here? It's like, oh, you hate to see that. And he's kind of breaks it down a little bit, but just a little bit because the contrast in his personality was so funny because he's over here kind of excited to talk about like this game 7 thing. He's interrupted. He's like, I don't want to talk about this goal that just happened against my team. He was very like bland, but kept it short. He's like, yeah, you hate to see that. And then, you know, they finish talking about it. Drew comes in, does the what do you call it? The color commentating thing. What is it called? Color analysis. Finishes up, and then he goes back to the story, and he's happy again. So I'm curious to know if he'd like want to take a job in something like broadcasting or not, because obviously, like he would be able to break down the game pretty easily, right? He knows how it works. But does he have an interest in that, or would they have him somewhere like in like, some sort of coaching thing or like player development, like they have Tommy Wingles or something? You know, I don't know where like what job would best to suit him.
Well, we know that he's going to take some time with his family while he continues to heal from the reality that he is no longer going to be the player that he was hoping he would continue being for the last handful of games of his career. I do want to comment on like Grier's response in that press conference, because I'm sure he's being very genuine and stuff, but I couldn't help but just kind of laugh to myself about some of what he was saying. Felt very much like, yeah, you're a hockey player. You're just saying these like hockey cliche things. And I'm trying to take you seriously because I'm sure you're genuine in what you're saying. You're trying to express yourself and whatever. But it was just like, oh man, these hockey cliches that you're using, like he does all the right things. And I'm like, what does that mean though?
Right. You play the right way.
I'm like, oh. It went
That was
from
funny.
Couture being very like vulnerable and everything, and then you switch over to Grier, and he's like, yeah, like you play all the right ways. You're in the corners, digging in deep.
Yeah, so silly.
But yeah, there you go. That's close that chapter in a sense where fans can stop speculating about what's happening with Couture. And so I don't know if you necessarily want to get into a follow-up discussion about what Grier said in the locker room clean out in regards to the captaincy.
I do, but I want to do our ad read real quick because it's about that time. Before we get into that, we'll go ahead and talk about our sponsors, DraftKings. Uh, the NBA 82 is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw dropping plays. That's really hard to say. Jaw dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40 or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first timers. New DraftKings customers get bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777. I don't know if I said that wrong. Or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino or Resort, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming sources, see dkng.co/audio. While we are a hockey podcast, I don't really follow the NBA. If you do, go ahead and check out their over and unders. No, they're money lines, but we are going to focus on hockey. Tomorrow on the 21st, the Montreal Canadiens are playing the Capitals. Canadiens with a plus 164, Capitals with a negative 198. The Blues against the Jets will be a plus 160 for the Blues, a negative 192 for the Jets. Colorado a negative 142, the Stars a plus 120. Oilers against Kings, a plus 102 for the Oilers, a negative 122 for the Kings. Florida series, the negative 102 for the Panthers and a negative 118 for the Lightning. So go get your bets in. It is playoffs. You never know which way this is going to go, so it might be a little riskier. You don't know. Anyways, back to our Sharkies. I'm so sad. The shark season is over. I don't think it's hit me yet. Yeah, so on Thursday they had their locker room clean out, and Grier did make some interesting comments about whether or not he wants to name a captain soon or not. Because okay, as soon as it was announced that Couture was retiring or doing this press conference, because I don't know if it was officially announced that it was his retirement press conference, people were already speculating. Oh, he's retiring. Who's going to be next captain? Do they name a captain? Well, it's like, give him some time. He hasn't even announced his retirement yet.
I mean, to be fair, they didn't even wait until he retired. They already wanted to replace him during the season.
So obviously all of these beat reporters are like, who's going to be the next captain? We've had this conversation off the podcast talks and stuff, but I think from my perspective, it doesn't really make sense to name a captain right away. Looks like Grier feels the same because he's quoted as saying that he's in no rush to name one and that it's a quote-unquote sacred thing. Shang tweeted, no, what do you call this? Posted, blue skied it. He's also comfortable going into next season without a captain, not saying that he will, and it could still be one of the current Sharks players, but the big thing is he's in no hurry. I don't know if I have any more quotes from this, but if you want to go ahead and say something while I look for it.
Yeah, so last week we kind of already, had a little bit of this conversation, and as you also mentioned, we've talked about it offline. I think we're both kind of in consensus that no captaincy naming is necessary right now. If anything, it is at the farthest bottom, not even a focus for the next couple of seasons in my mind, because to me, the captaincy is not necessary right now. The captaincy, I feel, is something that is only going to burden someone at the moment. And I know that one of the things that I've noticed, and Toffoli was asked and Ferraro was asked during the locker room clean out about the potential of them getting named captain. And it was really interesting. I had to listen to Toffoli's answer a second time around, but Ferraro was a little more straightforward in his response. He said that it would be an honor, but then followed it up with essentially the same sort of vibe that both of us have, where it's like not really the focus right now. I mean, they have several great leaders in the locker room, which I think is way more important at this time than giving the C to one of those guys. Like, one of the things that I kind of made me feel like, yeah, this is really not necessary at all, is the fact that how many of our A's did we trade this past season? Like, and not to say that they shouldn't have. Of course, time and time again, I would give it to Granlund. Cunnin kind of felt like that was sort of put on him as the pressure to, hey, I see you as a leader. I want you to do more by giving you this A. Like, I am seeing you as like the potential that you could be. That's why I'm giving you this A. Granlund, of course, he was such a great leader in the locker room. And then trading both of them, it was more just, it's kind of silly that we're putting this sort of pressure to have a captain when the New York Rangers traded like Trouba, the Anaheim Ducks named Gouda like this season. Like, it kind of, to me, sort of feels like I don't want the captaincy to feel like that, where we give it to someone and then a couple of seasons later, I mean, with Brad Marchand, he was given the C. Now where's he at? Like, to me, it kind of makes the captaincy feel less of what people think it is. And the next captain that we name, like when it went from Couture, Pavelski, Thornton, Marlowe, like all of those made sense. All of those felt like when we gave them the C, like it was very thought out. It was very appropriate versus we just need a C to give someone a C. Like we need to see because of why. Well, hockey answer here. Insert hockey answer here. So, and then so going back to Ferraro mentioned, there's plenty of like, great leaders right here with the A's. And I really liked Ferraro's response to it just because he's like, yeah, that'd be a great honor. It's not really something, that's very important right now. Like we've got the leaders. We need to focus on our game right now. So Foley almost felt like he super sidestepped the question entirely. And I want to ask did you get to watch both of their locker room cleanouts?
I didn't watch the Foleys. I only watched Ferraro's.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, Ferraro, he brought up a good point that got me thinking when I watched Foley's response. Ferraro's been in a situation where he got onto this team during our like descent. Like he didn't get to come in here during the glory years of making the playoffs and all that stuff. Like, and I've already stood on multiple soapboxes to defend Ferraro, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's a terrible defenseman. I'm done with him." And it's like, this guy tries so hard, and he's like had the worst experience with his development being on a shitty team and being put in situations where it's like he's been put on the power play, and it's like even if he like is not cut out for the power play, it's like too bad, bro. You're the only one who can do it right now, right? And so from his perspective of like he's never been able to go to the playoffs with this team, and like he's been in a situation where we haven't been like in the playoff picture, and so he's got more of a glass half full perspective. And then you go to Toffoli being with the Kings during like their cup runs, and he's won 2 cups. And then he comes in here, and if you recall a couple of weeks back, when all those trades were made and everything like that, like Toffoli was like, I'm going to have a conversation at some point with Grier to kind of understand, like revisit the conversation about the direction with this team, because he's signed 4 years here. And I guess he was kind of sold this picture. And of course, Grier's going to, try. He wanted us to be way better this season, and it didn't work out that way. But, Toffoli's kind of like, well, what are we doing now that you've traded off all these guys and everything? So for Toffoli's locker room cleanout interview, like he was very, very critical about the situation. And it's interesting to see because Toffoli has always known success at this level of the game. And Ferraro has had to be content with where we're at with room to grow. And Toffoli's like, no, we're not. If we're not up here, it's a problem. There's a problem right now, which I think both of the perspectives are valuable, right? Like we need this sort of, if everyone's just like, yeah, I guess next season we'll have to do better. Oh, well, like, I think it was interesting to kind of see their contrasting responses. And then did you get to watch Wenberg's?
No, I didn't get to watch all of them.
Wenberg's is also interesting because, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, the gist of what I know from Wenberg is when he was on the Kraken, and you could tell he was a very versatile player, much like he is with the Sharks. Like he could play on the power play, he can be on PK, he can go up and down the lineup. Like he's a very versatile player. And in his interview, he was like realistically optimistic. It kind of felt like he felt like there were good things during the season, and then the things that we need to change are very within our grasp. And he was also asked about what he would say to a player like Kovalenko, who's frustrated with his lack of ice time. He's kind of at this, like, we've seen the media talk about how he's considering going to the KHL and everything like that. And I felt like his response made a lot of sense, and he did it the way that Wenberg talks. I'm like, God, this guy is so intelligent with his words. Like, he wasn't giving hockey answers, the hockey cliche answers. It was very realistic. And also you could tell that this guy has been in the league for a while. He's moved around. This is his fourth team, I think. And he started with the Blue Jackets, then Kraken, then Rangers, then us. So he's been moved around. And the reality of that is you kind of have to adapt. You kind of have to realize that it's not going to work out the way that you want it to. Like, ideally you probably want to be a guy like Couture, who gets to spend, Vlasic. That was another great interview that if people watching or listening haven't seen his interview yet, I thought that was also really good. But Wenberg's response to someone like a Kovalenko is the reality that I understand that you are frustrated with your lack of ice time, but you can't just be upset about. You have to go on the ice day in, day out, and just put your best game out there. And however the chips fall, of course, I'm paraphrasing. This isn't exactly what he said word by word, but essentially that was the message that he was sending. And it doesn't make any sort of direct comment about particularly Kovalenko. It's just the reality that there are a lot of guys, young guys on this team right now, and you're in the situation where you have to fight it out with your peers on the ice. And if you feel like you're entitled to the ice, like that's kind of like a not good perspective to go into. So, and then Grier also commented about that during his interview in regards to Kovalenko. And I thought it was, from my perspective, this is kind of how I felt about it, where Grier said he felt that this was kind of getting blown out of proportion a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I felt about it, because it's not like, so we got Kovalenko from the trade with the Avs. But as I've mentioned in previous episodes, that I feel like, unlike when we made trades in the past when we were in the playoffs and you give up assets to get like key players to help you in the game, when that key player doesn't work out, then you can be like, what a terrible trade, blah, blah, blah. The lens of how we're looking at this team now, I feel like needs to kind of be shifted in. We're trying to make a bunch of these trades to replenish the pool, to have many options. And if some of them don't work out, it's not like we're out at sea drowning. Like, right. Okay, that's unfortunate. That didn't work out, but we gave up a little bit to try and invest, like we did in previous seasons, where we brought in like those UFAs who we could maybe turn around and get picks. We brought in project players like what's his name, formerly from the Red Wings, guys that were like drafted high, that were kind of in a situation in their career, like they could turn out to be beneficial for us, like being a young guy. Or if they don't, well, we made that chance because we had the ability to do it right now during our rebuild. And that's kind of how I felt with the whole Kovalenko thing. Like, I felt like some folks in the fan base were like making the Kovalenko thing more than it should be. Like, if he's not in the lineup, then he's not in the lineup. And I saw some comments about like, oh, we're not letting Kovalenko in the lineup, but we're having like Gaudreau and Grundstrom and these guys like Gregor. Like, almost makes me feel like people are too focused on the scoring aspect of the game. There have been multiple times during the last couple of weeks of this season where Drew has pointed out that, and I've seen it. I've seen it when I've been really focused in on the game, where our fourth line guys like a Grunstrom, Goodrow, even Noah Gregor, like they may not be scoring, but they're doing another very important part of our game, which is defense. They're making it difficult for these guys to come in and score against us, and they're creating opportunities, but they're not necessarily the guys that you're putting in the lineup. Of course, it's going to be very helpful if they can score while they're on the ice as well, right? But their objective of the game, it's like you put together that line because they're the tough ones to play against. And I feel like that kind of gets overshadowed at times when we're frustrated that we're losing games by 1 or 2 goals. It's like, oh, you're putting out like Ostapchuk and Goodrow. They're not even scoring. And it's like, yeah, but they're doing this other stuff that is also very important. And like the stat cards that come out every that I follow this one profile that puts out the stats in regards to like the plus minuses for defense and offense and whatever. And some of these guys are very high up on the list sometimes when we're losing really badly or whatever, or it's a very close game. Like some of them are at the top of the list. And I feel like it just gets overshadowed because we're so focused on like, oh, the Celebrini goal, oh, the Smith goal. And it's like, yeah, but there's other guys on this team that are doing the things that help us to keep the game close and allow a Celebrini and a Smith and whoever on those top 2 lines to generate the goals. That's what we pay them for.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't watch Wenberg's locker room exit interview. I did watch Warsaw's, and he was also asked about it, obviously, because he's the coach and he's the one making these decisions. And he said something similar where, you have to work for your ice time, and it wasn't anything personal. It's basically that this team is made up of a lot of young guys and everyone's fighting for a spot. So it's literally like him picking out who he thinks is best for the lineup for the night, and like whether or not he's putting in the effort, or like these guys are putting in the effort or taking in what the coaches are telling them they need to improve on and applying it to their play and stuff. So the way he explained it was like he seems like he's very fair with the way that he chooses who's going to play for the night. And again, it didn't feel like it should be as big as it is for like people, like the media, to be asking about it, and for fans to be talking about it. But yeah, I don't know, just people want drama.
Yeah, like some of the comments that I've seen about trying to create this like ripple of like, oh, Orso and Kovalenko have bad blood. I'm like, where did you see? Are you follow their private Twitter account or something? Like, why are we making up these conspiracy theories about like bad blood in the water? I don't know. Like I try not to dive down those rabbit holes. And I'm like, where are we getting that?
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. If Kovalenko decides not to sign here and play in the KHL, it's probably because he feels like he deserves more playing time, and
that's his right to feel that way. So
if he can't crack the lineup here, that's on him too, because that's like Warsaw and Grier said, everyone's working for a spot on this team, even if we suck. Like we're trying to get better, and the guys who are actually improving, like visibly, are the ones that are going to be sticking around. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel one way or another about it. It is what it is.
I just have to smile and nod because sometimes you see comments like the other day for like Wenberg comment about Kovalenko. the people who were like, "Oh, Wenberg should talk." He was a ghost for the second half of the season. I'm like, where? where was he a ghost? The guy
He was actually
like,
given an A, so I don't know.
I mean, he was almost nearly a mainstay on Power Play 1. He was holding the fort down on the second line. Like, this guy, like, please show me that you don't actually know anything about Wenberg's career without showing me, like I said, like, he kind of came onto my radar when he was with the Kraken, and I've already mentioned the type of player that he is. He's kind of like a Joe Thorne. He is a playmaker. He was not on both seasons with the Kraken. Like, yeah, he's scoring, but most of his career, if you look through his stats, he assists on plays. He is able to see the ice in a way where he can generate the opportunities for the guys like a Celebrini, like a Smith, to do what they do. What we pay them for is to find the back of the net. And when I saw that comment, I was like, I'm going to go through his stats. Let me take a look for a moment, because his career high was with the Columbus Blue Jackets. 80 games, he scored. He got 59 points, and the latter part of his career, it's kind of come down from there a bit. But with his season with the Sharks, he had 35 points in 77 games, which in the last 5 years, he could have easily created a new high from himself if he got to finish out more games this season. And on a team that is at the bottom of the league, he's actually doing quite well. Could he have done better? Of course. But this guy is someone who understands his role in the team, and he adapts to that. And he's able to provide value throughout the lineup. So somebody who's been through the grind, been on several teams. This is actually his fifth team. I forgot the 1 year he was with the Panthers. So I don't know, guys. Like, let's see more positives for this team, I guess, is where I'm at. Like, there are a lot of positives.
Jay's like, stop talking shit about my baby.
They're all my babies. All my babies. But I do want to talk about Vlasic, though, because I want whatever Kool-Aid he's drinking. I want, and it's not a diss. It's like, I genuinely want to see it from your perspective, because his interview, he Pickles is very straightforward. He's very, you're not getting the hockey answers from him. He'll tell you how it is, whatever. And he feels very certain that the Sharks can get back into the playoffs next season. And I'm like, I want that Kool-Aid you are drinking, because I want them to be like 20 points better than they were this season. But playoffs next season, that you're gonna have to really, we're gonna have to wait for the off season and some more signings before I can maybe feel like that is in the realm of possibility. But he did point out the fact that the things that prevented us from closing out those games, that we were in it until we just rolled over and something happened or whatever. I don't know how many games those were, but it definitely would have put us in a different situation had we been able to close out those games. And a large part of it being, goaltending took a hit, because the reality of the situation we talked about with Blackwood, we are still trying to beef up the defense. We fixed the offensive side of things, but of course the goals against, we need to clean up on the defensive and stop taking all of those penalties and whatever. But he pretty much just sort of like laid out a few things that he felt were fixable, which they are. but whether those are fixable enough to turn around the season to like add 30 more points to our standings next season, I really want to get on board with you there, Vlasic. But I guess I will keep an open mind. But
That's all we can do.
yeah,
Honestly, as long as this team, like the young guys, figure out their defensive play, maybe we get some reinforcements to help with that. I think we could be put in a pretty good spot to playoff spot. But I was curious because you said that with Vlasic, he's very blunt and very direct with like his response. I just looked up when his birthday is. March 30th. He's in Aries. It makes sense. We be like that. We tell you how it is, so. Yeah. Okay. We can go on and on about this stuff, but I think we should start closing this out. My grandma came over and she made some torrejas, which is like Salvadorian French toast, is what I like to describe it as. And it's a seasonal thing. We only make it for Easter, so I'm excited to go eat some of those. But yeah. So next thing, the Sharks this past week, signed. How do you say this kid's name? Leo Sahlin Wallenius to an entry-level contract. I vaguely remember them drafting this kid. He's a defenseman, I think. I can't remember. Yes, defenseman. He is 19, appeared in 16 games this season with the Vaxho Lakers. Oh my god, how do you say that? Of the Swedish Hockey League, tying for 5th among SHL youth under 20 defensemen with 5 points, 1 goal, 4 assists. He internationally represented Sweden in 2024 in the World Junior Championship, got a bronze medal, 3 assists in 7 games, finished the tournament ranked 2nd among team defensemen in points and assists. So he seems to be doing pretty well. I haven't been keeping up with this guy, but you seem excited to talk about it.
I'm just excited that we've got another player to look forward to. I don't know terribly much about him outside of the things that you've already mentioned, but we picked him 53rd overall in this past draft. And as I've already pointed out, defense is an area of our game that we're continuing to try to improve on. And so it'll be interesting to see where this guy kind of falls into the mix next season. One thing we didn't talk about is how Georgiev is being let go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that because he was improving. I guess he wasn't improving to Grier's liking, obviously, because he's not coming back. But he did mention that he wants to sign a veteran goalie that has experience to kind of help Askarov challenge him and like compete for the 1A spot or whatever. But I think it was probably Shane because he's the only person's articles I read these days. Was like Georgiev fits that role. You know, he is a veteran. He's seen it. It makes sense to keep him on to kind of like push him to push Askarov or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know what goalie is a free agent this coming off season. Like who would be good to look at and who would be good for Askarov. Because I think if we could get something like a Swayman-Olmark tandem, you know how well they got together and like really encouraged each other and had a lot of fun playing on the Bruins. I feel like Askarov could really benefit from something like that because he has a pretty big personality.
Yeah, when I saw that, and this occurred like just about after the Oilers game, that he mentioned he already spoke with Grier, and Grier said that he would not be returning next season. I'm sure it's very heartbreaking for Georgiev, but I'd imagine he understands. He talked about how his perspective on the fan base and how after games, there's so many fans that wait for you after the game and give you all these gifts and everything like that. So I think it's a little upsetting for him that he felt so much love from the fan base, and I'm sure among other things he was trying to fight really hard to stay with this organization because he felt this good vibe. And I've already talked about how I felt about him being with the team, and when the trade happened, it's a difficult pill to swallow because we went from Blackwood to, okay, we're back with the project player, and like how many times do we have to go through this? But I was hoping that we would give him, like, he showed enough, and maybe the organization felt from the coaching perspective that he had the potential to continue turning around his game. But I do have to respect the decision of Grier that we're really trying to tighten up for next season. Like, we cannot be 32nd in this league, and perhaps he didn't feel that Georgiev showed enough improvement in such a short amount of time. Like, I mean, Blackwood had whole seasons to improve his game, and while it seemed like it wasn't as steep of a journey he needed to go on in regards to comparing it to Georgiev, where I think he had been more of a hill to climb. I think it just sort of speaks to where, had he been in Blackwood's situation 2 seasons ago, I don't think we're thinking about his game as harshly as we are at this moment, where we need to be taking that next big step next season. And I guess Georgiev, just his game just doesn't seem like it's going to help us out in the way that we need to be next season. Especially, I think Grier's trying to make sure that we don't fumble Askarov, put him in a situation where he has to be that number one. If, let's say, we did bring back Georgiev and we took the chance and that was a wrong decision, and his career continues to dive down, definitely don't want to put Askarov in that situation where now his development needs to ramp up much quicker. Yeah, it sucks though. It sucks because I was really hoping that we could give him that cushion. But yeah, I guess it's one of those things that we're going to look forward to in the off season. Like, who is going to fill in that role? Who is going to be that guy that's going to be able to allow that buffer, with giving Askarov opportunity to play more, but not putting so much pressure and that responsibility on his shoulders too soon.
Yeah. This offseason, I think, is going to be pretty exciting for us. Just to see what kind of moves Grier makes to get us to the next level here. Last thing that we should talk about, I guess, because I guess the playoffs are going on.
What's
what
that?
Do I know? I don't know. My team doesn't make this. Did you want to do a bracket or something, or what? What is this?
We just go off of, like, we'll just go down the line, kind of give our perspective of choose a player in the first, and choose a team within each of the first round matchups to.
All right.
Who's going to advance
between Winnipeg and St. Louis? I think I'm gonna give this one to Winnipeg. They've been a juggernaut.
I think Hellebuck will will this team out of the first round if his teammates are not helping him out. And then generally, I prefer the Jets over the Blues.
Generally, yeah. I don't know how far they'll make it because I haven't been watching the Jets play. I mean, obviously they won the President's Trophy, so they've been pretty good, but they did win, right? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't care for the Blues. I think between Dallas and Colorado, I think that one's a little tougher. Um I want to say Colorado, but I don't know if that's just my bias.
So I would have said it would be a closer matchup if Robertson wasn't week to week right now.
Oh, yeah, I
Because I
forgot he got
caught a little
injured.
bit of that game yesterday, and in this from I started watching around the second period, and they were a little bit of like both of them felt like they weren't giving each other much ice time. And then by the latter half of the game, it was complete blowout for the Avs. Like, granted, there were a couple of goals there. There was this super weird. If you haven't seen it, you should watch the goal by Lehkonen. Like I think it was an initial shot, and then someone on the Stars like checked him, and he fell over, and his skate hit the puck like not intentionally kicking motion. He was falling,
Right.
and it like lobbed up over Ottinger. And I'm like, dang, that's terrible goal for a goaltender. It's like, how am I supposed to stop that? Like,
Right.
and then they did do a goal review because they were and the commentators, I think it was on TNT, so I think they're just neutral. They were talking about like, oh, how's this gonna go and whatever, and they were making me a little anxious. And I was like, no way this get called back. Like, there's no. They were like, well, it doesn't look like a intentional kicking motion. I'm like, have you tried falling and timing your kick on the? I think you're more concerned about how you're falling than being like, gotta kick this puck in the net. Like, they were getting me a little worried that I'm like, they are not calling this back. Like, there is no way he intentionally kicked that in the net. Bro was just falling. So it was a good goal, thankfully, because I was like, if they call this back, I'm calling shenanigans on all these on all these rules. Like, that would have made no sense. And then there was another one that I guess was just like a very good screening goal against Ottinger. And then by like the fifth goal that they scored late, I don't know. I think Bro was just tired. But all that to say that the Avs were dominating towards the latter half of that game, and the Stars were at some point they were trying to be more physical. They were like checking the Avs hard into the boards whenever. But like the Avs just kind of had the puck more times than not, and they had more opportunities, and it just very much felt like the Stars are just hanging in there. Like, I mean, I don't follow them terribly closely, but I have to imagine. I mean, Jason Robertson is one of like their top, power play, first line, whatever, to take him out and for him to be week to week. Like, I mean, I know you're supposed to have depth to make it through the playoffs, but when you take out like this, and he got injured in, I think, the last game of the regular season.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I do want to make a little comment here about because the game was in Dallas that night, I was kind of getting triggered by watching the crowd because it reminded me of when I was living in Texas and I went to go watch games for the Sharks. People in the crowd were getting up for every little thing.
No.
Pisses me the fuck off. Because if you're getting up for and it's like, so like one of the things is like they'll get up to like express, I'm very upset with that call. Any call on the ice, I'm very upset. I need to stand up and express because the rest are totally looking at me. I need to express how upset I am. And then if multiple people are doing that for anything on the ice, and then the people behind them have to get up because the game is still happening. I can't see anything. So then then it becomes a what do you call it? Or then it just ripples across the arena. So then everybody's getting up. So you have to get up even if you don't want to, because you're like, I can't see the game.
Right.
And then when people are anticipating that a goal is going to happen, they get up because they need to really, really see it, right? Or they need to get ready to celebrate. And I couldn't not see that during the game and remember how frustrated I was watching games in that arena. I'm like, can you please sit down? Like literally, I remember missing several goals because someone was coming back to their seat during play. I don't know, man. Like, when I go to Sharks games, if you are leaning in your seat or you're trying to get back in and the stoppage of play hasn't occurred, I'm not letting you. I paid to watch this game and I want to watch this game. But anyways, just want to put it out there. I was trying to enjoy the game and I feel like I'm back in that arena and I'm getting triggered with people standing
up. Just want to put it out there. Dallas fans suck.
You guys need to sit in your seat. I know it's a very engaging sport for you guys, but some of us want to sit in the chair that we paid for and watch the
game. Okay. Between VGK and Min.
Oh, see? Okay. I'm not gonna set any standards for how we're choosing these.
Right.
But I'm willing the wild. I don't think it's possible, but I'm willing the wild. Then I don't think it's possible. Like I don't follow this team very closely, but I just don't feel like they've made really any improvement to advance further than where they have been in the past.
Right.
I just really don't see it.
Yeah, I think Vegas is still too good of a team to try and overtake in the first round. Like you have to be really good or get a 5-minute major and score 4 goals in 5 minutes or whatever. Yeah, I'd probably take Vegas over Minnesota here. Between the Kings and Edmonton, I think might be a little bit more difficult. The Kings have been, I'm pretty sure, yeah, they were ahead of Edmonton in the standings for the Pacific Division. They have been playing pretty well, which I don't pay attention to the team. I didn't know this. Also, sorry if you're hearing a vacuum in the background. People don't care about my recording times here. I think Edmonton does have it in them to take over the series, but I don't know which of the two I want because I feel like Vegas against the Kings in the second round would be a really good matchup because they were, I think, their very first playoffs, their very first year, the Vegas went up against them in the first round, and it was pretty intense. I feel like that'd be fun. So if Vegas makes it, I think I'd want the Kings to make it too.
Offhand, I don't feel necessarily one way or the other, but I guess I'm going to pick Edmonton just out of the fact that they need to. They need to get to that cup somehow. Like time is ticking for McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah, I don't really care enough for the team. Let them suffer. We suffer too. Toronto against Ottawa, I think is a fun one. I'm rooting for the underdog. I want Ottawa to win. Our sweet baby Zetz is on that team. It'd be great to see him play well in the playoffs. Who cares about Toronto? Like it's the first round exit. Just give it to Ottawa. No, just kidding.
I mean, love a good consistency. So, right. But also I will also be rooting for the underdog. I think when Ottawa is on their game, like they can be really effective. But yeah, I don't see how it'd be fun for the Leafs to advance. Like that's no fun.
That's not fun for anyone but Leafs fans. Like,
That
who
is
cares?
not fun.
Tampa Bay versus Florida. I think I'm gonna take the Lightning over the Panthers for actually.
No, I'm
Wow,
going
this is
Panthers.
hard.
I'm going
This one's
Panthers.
tough. Dude, imagine Ottawa takes it and then the Panthers take it and then it's the Kachuk brothers against each other round 2. That'd be fun. Oh, let's will
We
that
love a good
into
storyline.
always. Okay, let's go with Florida. Yeah, Washington versus Montreal. I think the Capitals have this one. I feel like Montreal barely snuck into the playoffs. Lane Hudson really led them there. I don't know. He's a rookie. I don't think he has it in him to take it much further than this.
How crazy is that? That Lane Hudson is like the secret ingredient that has helped to boost this Habs team into the playoffs. I mean, they were kind of hovering there for a little bit in the last couple of games of the season, but just overall, like even if they had, and even if they like, you know, just ate it that last game or whatever, and miss the playoff cutoff, like just the fact that this kid is most likely winning the Calder.
Yeah.
Like
as much as we want Celebrini to, I think this guy is gonna get it.
I mean, for a rookie to like he stepped into this role of like he didn't start out this way, but a series of events that happened with the Habs, he was given this opportunity, he ran with it, and like for him to be so effective for a team that is not already like really established to make the playoffs, like I think that's really cool. But yeah, I have to go with the Capitals just because they do have that experience, but I'll be rooting for the Habs.
Yeah. It'd be fun. And then Carolina versus the Devils. I think I'm gonna have to take Carolina here because the Devils are without Jack Hughes and without one of their star players. I think it's gonna be really hard for them to get very far in the playoffs.
But they did get Dougie Hamilton back, so I think that helps them a little bit. Because before I was like, I just don't see it at all. Like but I think they give them a little more stability on the defensive side of things. But yeah, without Jack Hughes, I mean, if they somehow make it into the second round, like I think that'll just be like impressive. But I don't know how you sustain that. But
that'd be kind of fun though, because like, Washington and Jersey aren't super far from each other, and like I feel like fans would travel for both during the playoffs. They'd be like traveling for both of those games, like in Washington and Jersey. You know, that'd be fun.
Yesterday, I saw a number of Avs fans in the Dallas crowd, and I was like, "Huh, like how far is the drive from Denver?" I'm like, I would have taken a plane if I were them, because I'm not driving 700 miles to go to a game. But yeah, so I guess we'll see.
Our partial brackets here. So we have the Jets, we have Colorado, I think. Is that what you said? Yes, Colorado. Yes. You want Minnesota. I think Vegas is going to take it.
I have Delulu vibes with the Wild.
Right. They'd be a funner team to go past. I don't remember who we settled on for.
I think we're split on you want the Kings, but I feel like the Oilers have the fire under them. Like however you need to do it, you need to get over that line.
Right.
I mean, I think the Kings do as well, but I think the Oilers they're at a point where if they are a first round exit, like everyone be fearful of the vicinity of Edmonton.
Yeah, they're basically like the Leafs west first round exit. Can't do shit. Just kidding. Okay. On the east side, we want Ottawa to take it, and Florida. and then the Capitals, and probably Carolina, but we're rooting for the Devils. We'll check in again next week and see how we're doing. All right. Well, that's what we have for y'all this week. I've been your host, Ness.
And I'm Jay.
Happy Easter. Enjoy your well, I guess it doesn't matter because it's Sunday and people will be listening to this after. Enjoy your week, guys. Hope you're having a good time out there. Bye.
Bye.